Hi, I'm Emily Brewer, and I'm here to talk to you today a little bit about Christopher Columbus. Just to give you a little overview, I'm going to talk today about his Christian beliefs, how he treated the natives in the lands that he traveled to, and some of the positive aspects and some of the hardships that he had to endure. Almost everyone knows that Christopher Columbus is famous for sailing the ocean blue in 1492 and stumbling upon the Americas. But what people do not often understand is that this country of ours did not start off as the land of the free and the home of the brave. In Christopher Columbus' letter to Louis de Santangel, readers experience the story of Christopher Columbus's voyage to the Americas. What actions he took when he arrived is a commonly debated subject that goes from one end of the spectrum to another. Some people believe that this country would not be here without the man that conquered the New World, yet others do not agree with the fact that there is a national holiday for a man that supposedly slaved humans and expressed much cruelty. The question remains, is Christopher Columbus a man who was so devoted in his journey that he would do anything for the future of the Americas, or was he an explorer who was willing to risk his morals in order to acquire fortune? Christopher Columbus had a strong Christian-based belief system that he centered his life around and brought to the Americas. In a time period where religion was accepted and a correct way of life, it is no surprise that Columbus and many others were devoted to spreading the message of Christ. Columbus often referred to the Lord's goodness and love as he writes about with his journey to the new land. One of the major ways he professed his Christianity was by naming the islands that he explored to after biblical and religious titles. Throughout the 4 excursions to the newly found land, Columbus's belief system never changed or even faltered from revolving fully around loving God and spreading his word. However, Columbus's values did seem to drift. At first, when Columbus went on a voyage to explore the seas, he was concerned about focusing on his beliefs and finding new ways to travel. And even though his actual beliefs did not change, his priorities, included where his beliefs stood, did indeed take a shift. In his letter to Louis de Santangel, Columbus stated that he sent 2 men into the country to learn if there were a king or any great cities. When Columbus realized that there was no higher power on the land of the unknown, he craved to have the authority. Columbus suddenly started to put himself higher and higher on his priority list. When he went back to Europe, he went on to lie about what all the land consisted of and offered for them. He strived to be a man that found a land of fortune and fame instead of a sailor who simply found a new place to explore. Christopher Columbus did no harm in his travels to the new land. What he did once he reached the undocumented place is still what raises controversy today. Most people agree with the fact that Columbus and his crew were not the first people to find the Americas. There is proof that other humans had been living there previously and before he even arrived. He did not even know where he had landed at one point. He had mistaken the land that he had found as the Garden of Eden, according to Cook. When the European settlers arrived at the land, there was a lot of speculations about the native people. In the article Sickness, Starvation, and Death in Early Hispaniola, Cook states that the majority argued that the natives were lazy and undependable and even dangerous, and that they could never live as civilized Europeans, though a few suggested that with freedom and Christianity that they could become equal citizens. The native people were treated as outsiders in their own territory, and they were looked down upon because they were unfamiliar and unable to understand the new citizens. Columbus and his crew openly walked into already occupied territory and acted as if their own, and it was only theirs. The way that Columbus destroyed the native people emotionally has no excuse. Along with the emotional distress that was inflicted upon the native people, physical challenges popped up for both the Native Americans and the European settlers. The settlers had to ride on rocky and sickening waters to make it to the new Americas. Once in the new land, the food was not abundant, however, the sicknesses were. There were several negative effects and a lot of death that came along with settling this new land. Most people do not know who to blame for all of the problems that appeared, but most chose to blame Christopher Columbus. Even though harsh realities come from settling a land, and Columbus did not always seemed to make choices that would help other people more than himself, he did bring a positivity to the New World and to his people. In the legacy of Christopher Columbus in the Americas, new nations and transatlantic discourse of empire, Ruiz points out that the New World inspired ideas about the translation of the empire from the European to Americas. Columbus had to endure hardships of his own in discovering this new land, and he did not always have the proper funds. He dealt with criticism when other explorers and leaders did not support ideas, and he had to spend a majority of his time on a boat in the middle of the ocean. That was not always completely mapped since it was new. Columbus saw a lot of new sights that were non-existent in the Spanish part of the world. He also had to struggle with not being able to recognize or define a lot of the signs that he was seeing. Columbus had to deal with the difficult tasks along with his journey, and he is often looked down upon because of the decisions that he made. Columbus definitely went through the good, the bad, and the ugly. However, if it were not for his intellect and persistent work, growth and diversity around the world might look a lot different than it does today. Christopher Columbus was much more than an explorer that accidentally found a whole new world. He was a survivor in hard times, a selfish capture in unfamiliar times, and a man that brings on much conflict at all times. No person should have the ability to come in and limit one's liberty, and no one should be forced to give up his or her freedom and become a slave to another man. And no person should consider him or himself superior to others. Then again, one must do what is necessary for his or her own survival, and every human craves power and fame at some point in their lifetime. Christopher Columbus lives an exciting life and adventure, and he danced in the face of fear, and he longed to find fame and fortune in the land that was not for his to claim. Columbus was not and is not always considered to be a good man. He made selfish decisions like many of us today and cared about worldly possessions, lied about his findings, and killed innocent people. However, on the other side, he pushed through this diversity that he faced, and he was persistent in his pursuit and shared his Christian beliefs. It is often considered whether Christopher Columbus is a legend worth celebrating or a murderer worth condemning. But perhaps maybe he is simply a figure of both good and evil, just like everyone else. Thank you.